Hello, my name is Ufoma Apuki. I'm a research student of the Faculty of Computer Science in Alexandru Ioan Cuza University, Iași, Romania. Today, we'll be discussing a platform for my research. We'll be discussing the design of WASPEC. It's a weighted agent system for personalized e-learning curriculums. It's an e-learning platform that provides personalized learning experiences for students utilizing multiple parameters. For this presentation, we'll be describing the arc of personalization from the point of view of a teacher, a professor, or a course instructor. This platform was designed to achieve two major objectives. The first is to create personalized courses with a set of multiple parameters based on available course materials. To achieve this, we'll be having two distinct levels of personalization, which will be further explained. The second objective is to create a personalized framework that can easily interoperate with other e-learning platforms. Basically, a personalized e-learning framework can be custom built or can be designed by extending other e-learning platforms such as learning management systems. By extending learning management systems, we have the advantages of utilizing robust functionalities and storage and managerial capabilities such learning management systems provide. Here we have a high-level architecture of the system. We have a learning management system, which is any learning management system that is supported by web services. We have a service framework which interacts with the learning management system through web services and also describes the relationship between personalization, a set of personalization parameters, and metadata describing learning resources on the learning management system. Finally, we have a semantic framework that describes our domain, also defining relationships between users, courses, and personalization parameters in an ontology. The semantic framework serves as a standard means of sharing knowledge, and it also facilitates interoperability between different e-learning platforms. For the learning management system, we'll be using Moodle, which is a popular open source PHP e-learning framework where course instructors can create courses with a wide variety of learning resource course modules that can be delivered over the web. And so basically the course instructor creates a course, and also competencies can be defined on the course, which describes different learning goals at different proficiency levels for students. For this presentation, we'll be describing the personalization of an English language course, which was designed according to the common European framework of reference for languages. Here we've added competencies, and we've also added course models, which the personalization of these course models will be described later. On the service framework, which is designed on Laravel, an open source PHP framework, metadata elements to describe our learning resources can be defined here, and also our set of personalization parameters can also be defined here. For this implementation, we'll be using the elements of the IEEE Learning Object Metadata Standard. The Learning Object Metadata Standard has over 60 elements, but for this implementation, we just used a select few. This can always be increased depending on the preferences of the course instructor, what he or she wants to add to the course. And also here on the service framework, we can also define our personalization parameters. Here we can see we have some parameters: language preference, media preference, and categories of learning style from the Felder-Silverman model. To define for every parameter defined with divergent dimensions, every dimension has to be mapped to a specific data element on this platform. For instance, these dimensions, the beginner is mapped to the easy difficulty level for the data elements. So this is how we describe data elements, and we map personalization parameters and data elements. The first phase of personalization of courses on the Moodle platform would involve adding a course. Here we can add a new Moodle course from our Moodle platform through web services. As said in the introduction, we'll be describing the personalization of our English course. We've already added it, so we're not going to add that again. So this is our course. It has been added. Also, we mentioned in the introduction that we have 2 levels of personalization. This is due to the fact that it has been observed from different surveys of designs of e-learning systems that the level of knowledge is a dominant criterion for personalization. Hence, we have 2 levels of personalization for this implementation. The first level of personalization determines what the learner has to learn. There will be no selection on the first level of personalization. For the first level of personalization, we'll be using knowledge level, different difficulty levels to determine what the learner has to learn. And the second level of personalization would involve how the learner goes about learning. So we have knowledge level acting for the first level of personalization. Then from all these other parameters we've described there, we're going to select the relevant ones that will serve in the second level of personalization. So for the first level, we have to add difficulty levels to the competencies. So we have our competencies, which are we described here on the Moodle platform. So we'll add different difficulty levels to each competency. So each competency is specified by a difficulty level, as we have specified in the data elements. So we have easy, medium, and difficult. So we have the competencies for this particular course. The next phase of personalization involves personalizing learning resources or course modules on the for the course. So if we look into the course modules for this particular course, these are the course modules we have for the course on the Moodle platform. So personalization of the course modules will be in 2 parts. The first part will be to assign competencies to each learning resource, giving them specific learning objectives. So here we have our competencies, which you can select from this drop-down list. And so each competency, a competency can be instructed by 1 or more learning resources. The second part of personalizing course models will involve adding metadata features to the learning resources, making them learning objects. So these features are the features that we've discussed earlier on. They're data elements that have been mapped to the personalization parameters, and also these are defined in our semantic framework. So to implement this, several web services were implemented to enable extra metadata annotation to the course modules on Moodle. When the learning resources have been annotated with metadata, we need to select the relevant parameters for the second level of personalization from the set of parameters we have. So to do this, 2 indexes have been defined on this platform. There will be more details on slides and references. Based on the metadata annotations of the learning resources and mapping in the semantic framework, we can define what parameters are more represented by learning resources in this course. And we can also see how many dimensions of a parameter are represented. For instance, for this parameter, we can see 2 dimensions are represented. For this, only 1 dimension is represented, so it's obviously not suitable for personalization. For this, 0 dimensions are represented. Also, this value calculates the how much a parameter is represented. The closer this value is to 1, the more the parameter is represented, and it can serve as a relevant parameter for personalization. With these values, the course instructor can also add more learning resources for a parameter that is poorly represented. And in the ranking phase, a time factor will be added to each parameter based on the average time required to take tests or perform tasks for categorization. And also an optimal time will also be specified for each test. And with this, we can determine which parameter gives the highest satisfaction in the shortest possible time, if we consider these to be satisfaction values for each of these parameters. So we're just going to do a little test with the parameters and the indexes we have here. So we're going to specify an optimal time of 5, which should be a time limit for any test that should be taken for personalization. So when we rank this, we can get media preference coming up as as achieving the highest satisfaction in the shortest possible time. Or if we can recall from the previous slide, media preference has only 2 parameters, 2 dimensions out of 4 dimensions represented. So with this ranking, it's not absolute, but with this ranking, this can enable the course instructor to select relevant parameters based on their representation in the course, and can also aid the course instructor in choosing to add more learning resources to represent more dimensions of a parameter. From this, you can see this cannot be used for personalization in this course because we don't have any learning resource representing this particular parameter. With the values of the indexes for ranking parameters, the course instructor can then choose relevant parameters based on these rankings. So the course instructor can select parameters for personalization here, and the final stage of personalization on the service framework would be to add these relevant parameters as personalization on the course on Moodle. So by clicking here, we'll add the personalization, the relevant parameters for personalization on Moodle using the Moodle feature of groups and cohorts. So if we go back to the Moodle platform and we go back to the course, we can see the learning resources have been personalized based on groups and also cohorts. So each course model is personalized based on the features that have been described on the service framework. And for this personalization, this is only visible to the course instructor. If we log in as a user, this is personalization occurs behind is invisible to the user. So if we do log in as a user, if we log in as a user and go to the course we've been enrolled in, we can see the course models presented or the learning objects presented are according to the user's preferences. You can see that this user has preferences of active and visual according to the Felder-Silverman learning style model, and the learning resources that have been presented to this user are according to these preferences. And so from the set of parameters, this user only has to go through questionnaires or tasks just for these two parameters, even though we have a set of parameters that are more than that. So when this is recorded and can be used for subsequent personalization of other courses. And so this will be all. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.